Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Tuesday. I hope you're having a good one. We are, because Mike DeCourcy is with us as always from the Sporting News. How are you, sir?
I'm well, Jim. How are you?
Good. It's the weather has been spectacular. I talked about this earlier. The humidity is allowing the nights to be just wonderful. But I'm going to have to move at the end of August. And I guarantee you it will be 100 degrees at midnight with 100% humidity. But can't complain about it right now. Lots to talk about, Mike. There is a menu today. I'm not sure if you saw the Dizzy runs where the IU players were playing, and then now they're not playing. The PGA Tour antitrust potential Department of Justice investigation. The Open is getting started, LIV stuff with that. Texas Tech, a $200 million football facility, the All-Star roster, Kyle Schwarber, and the WAC is going to start using analytics to help seed their basketball tournament, which is ridiculous. But I think, is this just some kind of way of sticking out their name sticking out or something? Because to me, it's totally stupid.
It's absurd, Jim. I wrote a column about it this morning that I just posted on Twitter, and what it tells me is that some people out there are trying so hard to be different that that they really lose sight of what this is all supposed to be about. The first and foremost, it should be about your fans. Like, at what point do the fans ever matter anymore? And here's a league that has decided that instead of being able to look at your conference standings and determine who's in first and who's in second and who's in third, et cetera, pretty much a time-honored tradition in all of sports around the world. No. We need advanced analytics to try to figure out who really matters and who doesn't. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous. At some point, you have to take care of your fans. That they're the ones that are coming to games. They're the ones that are worried about whether you win or lose and such. And a few years ago, Conference USA decided that they were gonna trick everything up by basically re-scripting their last 3 weeks. The last 3 weeks of the season were held open. There was no schedule for them. This was in 2018-19. And so if you were in first to fifth, you played games against that grouping. If you were the next group, you played games in that grouping, and the bottom played the bottom for the last 3 weeks of the season. So if you were looking at your Louisiana Tech schedule in September of 2018, you didn't know who your team was going to play in late February and March. And here's what happened, okay? They went down. Their champion got a lesser seed in that season than it did in the year before, there was no year after, but a lesser seed than it's gotten in either season since. So what point was that? And it's the same now. They just got done getting a 12 seed with New Mexico winning a share of the conference championship and then winning the automatic bid. And then New Mexico State did a really nice job, as they have in multiple recent tournaments, and beat UConn pretty much on the road. They had to go all the way across the country to do it. And then they played Arkansas to within an inch of its life. And then, of course, Arkansas wound up playing very well in the NCAA tournament. So they're doing fine the way they are, but they have to show that they're really trying hard. It's a preposterous conceit. Look, you want to encourage your teams to play tougher schedules, that's fine, whatever. But to completely twist your leagues around, your league standings around, is preposterous.
Absolutely. Hey, I wish I was out there at BB's this morning getting some breakfast, because they have some of the best around. But so not only is this not in the best interest of the student athletes or the fans, to me, it hurts their conference. And the last thing you need to be doing right now is hurting your conference, no matter where you are, because of all the uncertainty in going forward. And I think that they're making a mockery of it, and because it's one of the greatest. This tournament is just great the way it is. I'm not saying that it's perfect because there's been mistakes that have been shown, but this kind of stuff is ridiculous when it's not like adding a shot clock or something, which would be great. But they are completely just doing something like a high school would do.
Oh, I think high schools would be smarter than this. The thing about it that's really strange, Jim, and why they would go to such an extent to basically make a mockery of their own league standings, why they would do that for a completely neutral tournament. This isn't one where if you're the number one seed, you get to play at home or something like that. They take the whole show to Vegas and play there. So you're just talking about rearranging the teams on the bracket. But why would you confuse your fans and diminish the importance of your own conference championship? Like if you go through the WAC schedule and you have the best record at the end, there should be a consummate reward to that. It should say, okay, we get to start as the number one seed, but instead they're trying to outsmart that. And again, it for what value? Not so that the team that has the best net ranking, etc., gets a home game or two home games, or even like the Patriot League, you get the championship game on your home floor. No, it's all just numbers on a bracket. So why do that? It's not a massive change, but it's a significant inconvenience for those fans at New Mexico State, at Stephen F. Austin, and all the rest on how they appear in the league standings and how they appear on the bracket, and what does winning or losing mean in a conference game in the WAC. It's silly. It's not necessary. And most of all, I hope no one that's really serious about this game decides to copy this ridiculous conceit.
They might as well just use the Sagarin ratings, baby.
Well, I mean, they could use whatever they want. Once you go away from wins and losses and where you stand on, who's 14-4, and I used an example in my column where if you here the net rankings, one of the things about the net rankings is that the net rankings are a margin of victory metric. So there are points of diminishing returns in it, but if you beat all of your opponents except for three, let's say you go 15-3 in the WAC schedule, and you beat the crap out of all 15, but then you lose close to three of them, and then somebody else goes 18 and wins every game by like 3 points. It goes 18-0 and wins every game by 3 points. There's a chance you at 15-3 could be seated above the team that went undefeated in your conference. I mean, that's a mess. And again, it's a disservice to those fans who pay their money, who spend their time and energy in WAC gyms supporting their teams, who pick up a paper maybe, or look at their Twitter handle that's all fed into WAC accounts and try to figure out what's going on. You won't really know what's going on until depending on how teams are situated in the net standings, you won't really have a good idea what's going on until you get to the end and your team is got the best net ranking or it doesn't.
And what about the teams that played a horribly easy non-conference schedule, which will be included into this?
Yeah, one of the things that bothers me about this fixation, and I talked to a coach whose team had a very nice season this past year and then got left out of the tournament. One of the first several teams to be left out of the tournament. And his schedule had been easy. And he said, yeah, but it had to be easy. We were trying to build a winning culture. We were trying to get guys to understand they didn't have to be bottom feeders for their entire college careers. We wanted them to understand what it's like to win a game. How do you get there? And so, we played an easy schedule, but then we figured our league would be difficult, and we would, if we won enough games in that, then we might make the tournament. And it turned out that it didn't make the tournament. But he would not apologize for that schedule. And there's one thing that bothers me when we get to August or so and schedules start coming out, and some of my colleagues in the media start ripping teams for easy schedules and how embarrassing it is and all that. Look, every team is not created equally, and you have to schedule for what's best for your team. And sometimes that might be not a lot of challenges because you've got to build them into a successful group. Playing a tough schedule is not for everybody. Playing a tough schedule is for teams that are fully developed and fully confident and know that they're going to have a good year. It's just a question of how good and all that. And so I think this one-size-fits-all approach to any part of basketball is ridiculous. I'm never going to criticize a coach for playing an easy schedule. I will explain if you have a lesser seed, why you played this schedule and now you have a lesser seed, or if you don't make it, that's why you didn't make it, whatever. But I'm never going to criticize a coach for that because sometimes that's what they need.
Yeah, I think teams are going to have enough trouble with their schedules to make the NCAA tournament. They shouldn't have to worry about scheduling to do well in their own conference.
That's true.
It's like, gee, that just dawned on me. I'm like, I know the NCAA uses this stuff, but I'm like, well, that's a whole different beast. I said, now you're having to schedule just to try to move up in your own damn conference. It's that would be absolutely crazy. It's the opposite because it's most the Big Ten is, they're prepping in the non-conference. Of course, they have tough games, but there's a ton of easy games. Indiana's got a couple of 300 teams come this season, but they've got an unbelievably tough schedule. So it definitely balances itself out. I don't think that'll work, but it's getting the WAC some attention, I guess, but I don't know that it's good attention.
Well, I mean, there are some people out there, fresh approach, it's the same thing as, when, as I mentioned, Conference USA did their thing. Oh, it's a fresh approach. It's a new approach. And look, some people are going to say anything other than actual sports is great. Some people who cover sports don't really love sports that much. I happen to think that college basketball is a great game and doesn't really need to be completely detonated to be a better game. Are there tweaks that you can make? Yeah, maybe fewer charging calls. Okay, I'm good with that. But I don't think you have to redefine the meaning of wins and losses in order to make it a better sport. I just think that there are some things that are pretty much, pretty solidly developed. And I think the team that has more points than the other team, being the team that emerges victorious, is a pretty sound principle.